Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 5 shots or 6? Well, in all the excitement, I kinda lost track myself. And as this is a .44 Magnum, most powerful handgun in the world, capable of blowing your goddamn head off, you've gotta ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss The Outlaw Josey Wales, which came out in 1976, directed by Clint Eastwood and based on the book Gone to Texas by Forrest Carter. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Josey Wales, set in America during the American Civil War. His family are killed by a bunch of soldiers from the North, and so Josey sets up with the South to try to fight back. At the start of the movie, the war is over and the North has won. But Josey is still setting out to get his revenge, and we follow his trail across the plains of America.
This is quite a surprise, this film. It's a film I'd never seen before.
Me neither, yeah.
And this also came out at a time, again, where Westerns were kind of not made in Hollywood. They were kind of thought it would be career suicide to make a Western in the late 70s.
Yeah,
after,
yeah.
You know, all of the original Western films.
Yeah.
They just weren't that popular anymore.
Well, I mean, I suppose after Sergio Leone's trilogy, the Spaghetti
Yeah.
Western trilogy, you know, how could you beat those three?
Yeah,
Really?
I mean, those films themselves changed the landscape of Westerns as well. They gave them a much harder edge, a brutal reality to them.
Yeah.
That the sort of original Hollywood Westerns didn't, where it was very stereotypical.
Yeah, I mean, the old black and whites, the cowboy always wins, gets the girl at the end, everybody else dies, where, you know, then we start seeing that the heroes actually can die, and their
Yes.
families are killed, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. And of course, this film had a troubled early production.
Really?
Where the director for the film was let go within the first couple of weeks.
Wow.
I think it was the writer. I think it was Kaufman.
Okay.
Philip Kaufman.
Yeah.
They let him go early on, and then the production halted, and then Clint Eastwood came back and went, "Okay, I'm directing."
Yeah. I was very surprised, because obviously I know Clint Eastwood is a director.
Yeah.
You know,
He's still directing.
He's still directing now. I mean, one of my all-time favorite films that he's done is Gran Torino.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Letters from Iwo Jima,
I love $1 Million Baby.
$1 Million Baby is absolutely amazing. And when I saw that his name was attached to this, I'm like, oh wow, really? He was directing all the way back then.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so I had
This is his first film to direct either.
Well, no, that's it. I look back, and his first one was Play Misty for Me from 1971. You know, and he would go on to do all these other great movies. And the fact as well, like I said, he was in the Sergio Leone trilogy, which I think is absolutely amazing. I mean, I love The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes.
You know, and I know a lot of people say, well, A Fistful of Dollars is just a remake of Yojimbo, and it's like, well, I love Yojimbo, but you know, Clint Eastwood in a fucking Western. You know, he was doing all that time in Rawhide as well during the 50s and 60s. So seeing him, I didn't realize that the director had been removed and he'd stepped in. But as I was watching this film, I'm like, you know what? We're looking at a man who learnt his craft back in the day. You know, I would not be surprised if we heard stories about him on the set of Rawhide, listening to the director, checking the cameraman, you know, learning what happens behind the scenes, you know, in preparation for advancing himself in the future. And my God, has this man advanced himself.
Yeah, he is. He is a true Hollywood icon.
Oh, yeah.
He is a powerhouse as an actor and director.
Yeah.
And that is all on display in The Outlaw Josey Wales.
Whooped him again, didn't we, Josie?
Whooped him again, boy.
The opening section, I mean, like before the even credit sequence, we just see this man working in the fields with his son.
Yeah, the first 5 minutes of this film, it kind of steals your heart.
Yeah. I was, you know, as a parent myself, you know, I see him and mum shouts, "Come on, come get washed up." And dad kind of doesn't want the son to go, but he's like, you know, kind of like me, you're like, you do what the woman says, really. And so he sends his son off, but then you hear the horses, you hear the shouting, you see the black smoke, and he goes running to find out what's going on, and there it is. His house is on fire. His wife is being attacked by a group of men, and that's not going to end well. And then you can hear the boy shouting "Pa" from inside the house. And I'm like, fucking get in there, fucking get in there. And he's taken down by Tyrrell, played by Bill McKinney, who's, well, he's a red boot. I mean, I'm not up with the American Civil War history. It's humans fighting humans.
I think they were a militia group from Kansas that had come down to Missouri and was just raping and pillaging towards the end of the American Civil War.
But this is it. I mean, you hear stories that, the South were the bad guys, that's why the North had to win. Well, this film portrays the North as bad guys.
Well, there was good and bad on both sides.
Yeah, well, yes, humans fighting humans, don't get me started. But it's just, he gets sliced on his face, doesn't he, by that cavalry sword. And then he's dropped down and he's left for dead.
I can only think that they believe they killed him at that point, because that's one of the things I don't understand, is why they left him alive.
Well, why not? They've fucking done everything else. There's 20 of them there. Why not leave this man alive? What's he gonna do?
Well, I mean, they killed his child and wife, so it was like, why not kill him as well? Why leave him alive? But I think they believed he was dead already.
Yeah. And you just, I love the breakdown of Clint Eastwood at this point. I mean, we're only fucking 10 minutes into the film and I'm already praising it, where you see that section where he's dragging the burnt corpse and the arm flops out and you're like, oh my god, that's to imagine having to do that, to sift through your burnt house to pull out your dead son at that time where there's no fire rescue, there's no ambulances, you have to deal with this yourself. And then burying his son. And I love the way he's there and he's got the cross and he says, God giveth and God taketh away. But you can tell as well that he doesn't fully believe it anymore.
No. I mean, you can take his, he's leaning on the cross, like he's leaning on religion and it topples over. And so you can take that as he's no longer a man of faith anymore. No. Well as, showing the emotional devastation that he's suffering at this point. And so when you next see him with the pistols aiming at that wooden post.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of montages just, you see all the bullet holes in it.
Do you know what it took me back to? Unforgiven.
Yes.
Took me back straight to Unforgiven, which I'd seen obviously before this, but Clint Eastwood stood there with a gun practicing his shooting, and I'm like, oh, you motherfuckers are dead. You motherfuckers are dead.
And then we get introduced to John Vernon, who's playing Fletcher. And I remember John Vernon from Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah, boy, yeah.
He was also in Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, he was I believe he's the mayor or the police commissioner.
The mayor. He's usually the mayor or a police officer or a bad guy.
Yeah, he's such an amazing actor.
Yeah, very amazing actor. I mean, you can't recognize him so much with the big beard in this one. But he turns up and he's like, "Oh, it was that group from Kansas.
Yeah,
want some revenge? Come with us, Josey."
Yeah, and weirdly enough, I was very surprised by this. We had the whole opening sequence after this, all the credits, the names popping up, but it was a montage of scenes of the North and the South fighting.
Yes, yeah.
And what I loved was this group of horsemen, these bushwhackers, just riding, just firing their pistols. Like, pow, pow, pow. And I'm like, who are you firing at? You're wasting bullets. Those bullets cost money, motherfuckers. But it's just to, to show that they are fighting against the North during the Civil War. And then as the credits end, the war is over. And Fletcher basically stands in front of the surviving bushwhackers and says, there's a Union camp down there. The war is over, boys. Any man who rides with me down there will be given a horse and being able to go home and be freed. So I'm giving up. I've had enough. And so everybody else starts to have that same kind of thinking because, they're basically killing each other in this war. And they all start to go off. But Josey's the only one who sits there because, well, what's he going to go home to? Mm-hmm. He's got nothing. He had a home, he had a family, and they were killed, and now he's got nothing.
He still hasn't had his revenge either for those that did kill his family.
Well, that's it, and he also has to find it. He's been told where they might be, but he hasn't found them in this whole time. And so Fletcher takes the last of his men down to the Union camp, and we're introduced to the senator, who's using Tyrrell, the bad guy from the beginning, and his red boots, to capture the last few pockets of resistance and finish them off.
And you see them handing over their weapons and their guns, and then they've all in a lineup and they have to do the oath,
pledge their allegiance, and yet we see Josey, don't we? And he sees them from the hillside and he knows something's up, and you start to see that fucking chain gun just peer out of the tent, and we're kind of introduced to the kid at this point. I mean, I didn't catch his name,
No.
but he's a young. He was a young soldier in the bushwhackers who probably lost his family and didn't know any other way, and he knows something's up. He doesn't like it, and then all of a sudden the chain gun starts opening fire. We start watching the bushwhackers get annihilated. Fletcher is like screaming like, "What the hell's going on?" And the senator says, "Look, they were treated decently. We fed them decently and we shot them decently." And I'm like, "You fucking
Yeah, whatever justification that they want to wrap it up with.
yeah." But then you get Josey riding in,
Lone
double
Rider.
pistols, and he is just shooting everything in sight. There are fucking bodies dropping left and right, and then he gets to the chain gun and he just starts unloading with the chain gun. And it was at this point I realized that they must have not had enough money for squibs.
No money. There was no squibs in this film at all.
Well, that's it, because you just see men go, and then just
Yeah,
fall
I
on
know.
the floor.
It made me laugh. I was like, wow, how far filmmaking has come with special effects.
Yes.
Where, it was just, you'd see them roll over and there would just be a bit of red. And like,
Yeah.
even the fabric wouldn't be damaged at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, exactly.
You'd just be like, yeah. It's when the film came out, it wasn't in HD,
No,
and
no, it
it
wasn't,
wouldn't have been
yeah.
easy to sell. Plus, you would have had the censorship thing, because it was interesting because this film was a PG.
Yeah.
In America when it came out, but it was an 18 rating over here in the UK when it came out, despite cuts made to the film.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of
There's 2 attempted rape sequences,
Yeah.
and there's a lot. I mean, the body count surpasses over 100.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 2 attempted rapes, child death within the first 5 minutes,
Yeah.
massive shooting within the first half an hour.
Yeah.
But the kid escapes on his horse from the guys, and he gets shot in the back just as he's getting away, and he sees Fletcher, and he mistakenly believes that Fletcher set them all up, and so he rides to Josey and says, "Josey, we need to get the fuck out of here." And Josey's willing on just giving up his life, and the kid's like, "No, we can't. You just got to go." And they do. They jump on the horse and they get out there. But I don't know, maybe it is just Clint Eastwood, just the way he is, but I love this whole dynamic at the beginning of him and the kid.
Yeah.
Like he's the experience, and he's trying to teach the kid, because the kid obviously he's been grown
Kind of
up.
like his surrogate son.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, he's been grown up in this time of blood and violence. He probably doesn't have any more family. So, can you really give the kid grief for how he's living? But he's massively injured. And so they come across this ferry, and you start to really appreciate the different characters that they come across, like the ferryman.
Yeah.
He's just the guy who runs this ferry back and forth across this river, and he starts telling you that he's running the north across, and so he has to sing one song, and he's running the south back, which means he has to sing another song. And it's just all business to him. But you've got that elixir seller guy
Selling
as
his
well.
tonics. That's great. That's great. You love those character types. It just brings you into the world a little bit more, doesn't it? And it has that great moment where, we've had, Josey. He's kind of chewing tobacco and he's spitting. He's always spitting. And he spits on the guy's jacket, and he's like, "Will I get that out?" And he's just like, "That's great. Love that." I was like, "Wow, that's actually quite funny as well." So it's, some dark humor in here.
Yeah, I love the bit with Granny as well.
Yeah.
Nobody recognizes Josey. They know that there's a bounty on his head. After his soldier buddies have been killed, he's being blamed for it. So there's a $5,000 bounty on his head, and Fletcher and Tyrrell have been given these large contingent of men to hunt them down.
Fletcher is like, he was, the good guy.
Yeah.
But now he's been turned into a villain. But he's questioning it himself. He's forced into it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's a happy villain.
He kind of knows that he's taking these men to their deaths if they're going after Josey.
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
has to do it anyway.
But he has to do it. But it's that whole point with Granny where Josey rides up to the store to buy some stuff, and the Granny comes out and she goes, "Hey, you're Josey Wales," and he's like, "Whoa, how do you know?" And she's like, "Group of soldiers that came through here, they're looking for you, they're needing money, they're this, that, and the next thing." And he's like, "Well, okay, thanks. Well, we need supplies." And she gives him the supplies, and he says, he goes to pay her, and she goes, "You pay me next time you come through." Like, she knows, like, she's behind Josey Wales even before we are.
Yeah.
And they get on the ferry, Josey and the boy, and the elixir seller, and they head over. And Tyrrell and Fletcher and the soldiers turn up, and the ferryman's saying, "Oh, I'll slow him down for you. I'll slow him down. You know, I'll buy you some time. You get out of here." And the kid says to Josey, like, "Nah, he's not going to do it." And Josey's like, "It's all right. I'm just going to wait here." And you're thinking, is this the part where he kills 30 men all on his own with two
Right.
pistols? Because that'd be fucking amazing. But he says to the elixir seller. The elixir seller says something about, "Oh, we have a saying in somewhere." And replies the saying to Josey. And Josey pulls out this fuck off great big sniper rifle repeater gun and goes, "Well, we've got a saying in Missouri as well about Missouri boat ride," and shoots the rope
Yeah.
as their men's ferry's coming over. And I'm like, see ya.
It's pretty harsh because you watch those horses go flying off the side of it.
Yeah. Now, I just want to point this out. If there are any great actors in westerns, it's horses.
Yeah.
Because when you see horses tumble and fall and are pinned to the floor, like there's a sequence where Josey and the kid pin their horses to the floor to avoid the posse riding over. I'm thinking, fucking hell, you know.
These were all wild horses as well, you know,
Wow.
that they used. And so there was no animal safety control.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate to say it, but there was a point where Clint Eastwood was getting really frustrated with his horse, and rumor has it that he literally punched the horse square in the jaw. You know, the horses were heavily used
Yes.
in the making of this film.
Well, that's why I have such respect for them, you know, because when you, like I said, when you're watching a Western and you see them collapse and, you know, somebody's been shot in the horse, you're thinking, oh, fucking hell, the man's being helped up. That's just a stuntman. Who's helping that horse? He probably just gets a carrot at the end of the day. And like you said, with those two horses that you see falling off the ferry, you know, oh my God, with those actors, with all those horses on that ferry as it's going down the river, I wouldn't like to do it.
No.
God almighty!
After Josey and the kid have gone away, they stop because the kid's wound is really obviously starting to affect him. He's been shot in the back and he's probably going to die. And I love this whole little section where he's, you know, Josey's trying to help him and he starts singing about his, the song about his dad. You know, his dad used to do all of his stitching, which in that day was obviously the job for the woman. Which he, you know, you could tell that the kid kind of loved his dad and his dad would sing this song. And so he starts singing the song, and then you get these two trappers just appear. And they pull their guns on Josey, and they're like, we caught Josey Wales, it's $5,000. You take your guns out. And Josey drops his guns. You know, he knows he can't take on these two guys.
But as an audience member, you're watching him, waiting for him to do it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know.
But when he drops his belt, you're just like, okay, how is he going to get out of this?
Yeah.
And the kid starts acting delirious.
Yeah.
You know, and he starts saying, you know, we robbed the bank. And
we got
I've
the
still got
gold."
the gold. And so, these two guys are just like, really? They got gold as well? Jackpot.
Yeah. And they pull back the rug to reveal that the kid's just got his pistol, and he blasts one of the guys, and Josey deals with the other one. And I love the fucking line where the kid says, like, should we bury their bodies? And Josey goes, buzzards got to eat too, don't they? Same as the worms. And they just leave them, and I'm like,
Awesome.
oh.
Hell with them fellas. Buzzards gotta eat, same as worms.
There's points in this movie that I kind of wanted to kind of see him as a bad guy, because he was that badass. You know, he was such a good shot.
He's kind of an anti-hero in a way.
That's all I could see him was he was the good guy, but an anti-hero.
He's so intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, he's so in control that even when he doesn't appear to have control, you're just waiting for him to take the reins, literally.
Oh, there,
You know?
yeah. And the kid dies, and Josey just sends him into a Union camp because he says, look, they'll bury you better than I ever could. And he sneaks past the Union camp and comes across a civilized Indian, as they call it, Lone Watty, played by Chief Dan George. And I mean, it looked like he was coming out the toilet. You know, you don't see why he's coming out, but he seems to come out and he's looking around. And he's got his rifle and he points it towards the bushes, and you see the horse coming, and you're like, hey, that's Josey's horse. And then Josey appears behind the Indian, and he says, oh, I didn't think I could sneak up on an Indian. And they have this such a great little dialogue, because like if you're obviously followed the history of what the Americans went through with the Indians, a lot of the Indians at this point have lost their land.
Yes, yeah. Well, they're still being pushed back at this point. They're
Yeah.
still signing treaties and giving up ground.
Yeah, for the white man.
Yes.
But I love the fact that Josey turns around and says, oh yeah, you can't trust that white man, can you? Because both of us have been fucked over. Both of us have lost our families.
Yeah.
And Josey stays with them for a little bit, and the Indian just burns his clothes and tries to go back to his own ways. And it's the start of
a great friendship.
Yeah,
it really is.
but
There's a respect between each other for themselves.
Yeah, but it's also the start of the unwilling posse that Josey is going to acquire.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he does build a new family as the film goes on.
Yes.
Now, yeah, Chief Dan George is a phenomenal actor.
Oh yeah.
And I only ever remember seeing him in Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman.
Oh wow.
And he was exceptional in that. And the reason why he got the part in this was because of his performance in that. But he was getting quite old at the time of the recording of this, and so whenever it came to do his scenes, he'd read the script, memorize his lines, and when they called action, he would just be like, where am I? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And so Clint Eastwood would be like offset, just tell the story of what just happened. Just tell the story like around a campfire, and he would just immediately just start talking.
Yeah, I got so behind him. He was so lovely.
Exactly, yeah, and it's because he couldn't remember his lines.
Yeah.
But a few points when it was just one shot and a couple of lines, they would get it. But for the most part, it was just improv. And so, I'm watching interviews with Clint Eastwood. He's just like, I was in my director's mindset, but then I had to go into my actor's mindset and just improvise with these actors in order to get some of the scenes, because a lot of the actors were in their 80s. Yeah, and it's just beautiful to watch on screen because the two of them work really well together.
Yeah.
I have a fine woman and 2 sons, but they all died on the Trail of Tears. And now the white man is sneaking up on me again.
It's like they agree that they're going to travel because both of them are heading to Mexico, but Lone doesn't have a horse, and so Josey's like, "You're going to walk there?" And he's like, "Well, what else am I going to do?" And Josey's like, "Well, I'll get you a horse," and so he heads to the nearest kind of trading post, and inside the trading post you've got the trader. Kind of obviously screwing people over. He's dealing better with the white man than he would the Indians, and the Indians are obviously the ones that are giving them the most, the most pelts and things like that. But he's got this like Indian assistant working in his shop. Little Moonshine, a great fucking actress. I mean, I loved Lone, but I loved her even more because you've got these 2 white trappers in there who are trading horses, and well, they haven't had sex for a while, so they want to have their way with Little Moonshine, and it's really uncomfortable for a little while because you're just like, how long is this scene going to go on for? They've got her in the back, they're just kind of fondling her and groping her, and she can't fight back. The way her family has been treated, her tribe has been treated, she's kind of just having to sit there and take it. And then fucking Josey turns up in the doorway, and I'm like, "You're all dead."
Yeah,
you're all fucking
That shot
dead.
is great.
Yes,
the way it's just silhouetted almost.
But Josey doesn't want to get involved. He kind of walks in, speaks to the guy behind the counter, and says, "Look, I'm after some supplies, want some horses." And the guy says, "Well, they're the horse sellers." So Josey goes over and starts to talk to him. And one of them recognizes him, and he looks into the eyes of the girl, but he doesn't want to kind of help. Like I said, doesn't want to really get involved. He just wants the horse, go to Mexico. And so one of the trappers pulls his gun on Josey and says, "Oh yeah, this is Josey Wales, $5,000, we're rich." And so his mate pulls his gun, and they get off Little Moonshine. And they go for it. It's every fucking standoff with Josey is tense as fuck. I thought after the first couple, I'm like, it's not always going to be like this. Every single one is tense.
Yeah.
And they start telling him how to pull his guns out. You know, you hold them with the handles towards us. You know, you be real safe, or we're gonna blow you away. And you're like with the trappers, you're like, how is he gonna get out of this?
Yeah.
Spin, blam, blam. They're both dead.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Swift.
Yes. And he just says to the trader, like, oh, well, I'll be taking those horses now. And I got a bit confused because he spits on the guy's head.
Yeah.
And the guy moved, and I was like, oh, that's not playing dead very well.
Well, I don't think he died yet.
That's it, because
Yeah.
he moves again, and
Yeah.
I'm like, now he's fucking
Yeah,
dead.
yeah. I can't remember. I think it's Moonshine, or I think it might be Moonlight.
Moonlight, yeah.
She follows him.
Yeah. And she can't speak English, so
No.
he needs Lone to translate her. And it was just so brilliantly built up because, you know, unwittingly, he's picked up these two strays. He's helped them.
And now he also has the dog as well.
Oh, God, he spat on the dog's head.
That's what I mean, anti-hero.
That's what I was like, okay, I don't know if spitting on the dog was good, but, you know, you could have gone without that. But the fact that they were like, I was thinking out of shot, like, Clint Eastwood was the director, like, I need the dog to sit there, stay, spat in his face.
Yeah.
Well, you might as well ride along with us. Hell, everybody else is.
The group ends up in Tumbleweed, or as I've been playing Red Dead a lot, it looked like Tumbleweed to me. The small town being built up in the middle of nowhere, all these traders, you know, and Josey and the guys are just trying to get to Mexico. But they turn up in town, and we're kind of introduced to this a granny kind of character, and her kind of... Was it
granddaughter?
It was a granddaughter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Played by Sondra Locke, who I was very surprised. She worked in 13 productions with Clint Eastwood.
Yes, yeah.
You know, which
they
I'm
were
like,
an item. They were one of the Hollywood celebrity couples.
wow,
you know?
yeah.
And it is a fascinating story between the two of them because it didn't end very well for them as a couple.
Well, yeah.
You know, with lawyers and, you know, I don't want to go too much off on a tangent, but it appears that Clint Eastwood literally spoke to Hollywood studios and just went, yeah, okay, you have to keep paying her. I'll pay you so that you don't have to keep paying her. And whenever she comes to you with a film idea, turn it down. Don't let her work ever again. And Clint Eastwood kept paying the studios to pay her off. And and all of this was settled out of court because she kept trying to sue Clint for the damages that was done to her career.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, the two of them were such an item. You know, they really massively fell in love with each other.
Well, I was going to say, they worked so well. I mean, I'm pretty sure she was in The Gauntlet with him. You know, Bronco Billy as well. I mean, I've seen a few of the productions that they were in together, and those productions work.
Yeah.
But then hearing that, I'm like, Clint.
Yeah, I don't know all the behind the scenes, just what's written, and it's just like...
Something happened there.
Lots of stuff
Something happened. Maybe we should get him on the show.
Are you finished with your little speech?
Yeah, I'm finished.
I do not work for you, and if you ever raise your voice to me again, I will scratch out your eyes.
But they turn up in Tumbleweed, and they're getting the supplies. And I love the interactions with Granny where Josey spits on the floor, and Granny's just like, well, that's a nasty habit you've got there. And, you know,
She doesn't like men from Missouri.
well, that bitch don't like anybody.
Yeah.
She got herself a tongue on her, but she doesn't realize that she's coming out to the outback, the Wild West. You know, it's not as civilized as where she's coming from. But Josey goes in and buys a bunch of supplies, and you know, is told by the local shopkeeper that, you know, there's some guys looking for Josey Wales. You know, names out for him, and God, we're not entirely sure what he looks like. And I'm like, fucking hell. Luckily, there's no wanted posters kind of posted up. But then you get that confrontation with the 4 Union soldiers.
They recognize him.
Well, the elixir seller, man,
Yeah.
he recognizes him. And so the entire town just kind of goes quiet. And you got Josey Wales stood there holding his supplies. And it's another tense standoff.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna pull those pistols or whistle Dixie.
Yeah, and he shoots them all down.
Well, all but one. Luckily,
Yeah.
Lone was there to save them. And then it's when they're riding away from town. And Josie's explaining, like, the guy on the left, he had a certain kind of holster. He wouldn't have been able to pull his gun out. And the guy on the right, he was afraid he weren't going to do anything. But the guy on the far left, he was going to do something. And Lone says to him, like, what about the guy on the far right? Well, I didn't have to worry about him. You were there. And as the scene cuts, all you hear is Lone's voice go, what if I'd missed?
Yeah, which is great.
Never paid him no mind. You were there.
I could have missed.
But they end up hooking up with Little Moonshine as well, because she's picked up the supplies and ended up catching up with them. And there's this cool little sequence when they settle down at night time, because they're watching Little Moonshine kind of bathe, and they're these are two hot-blooded men. They've been riding for a while. They haven't had any. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, who's gonna get with her? And in the middle of the night, Josie wakes up and he can hear noises, and he walks over, and there's Lone and Little Moonshine going at it. And Lone's just like, well, I ain't that old after all. I'm like, get yourself, son.
Yeah. He's gone from being a civilized, Indian, Native American.
Yeah.
And but he's lost everything.
Oh, yeah.
He explains that he never surrendered, but his horse did.
I didn't surrender neither, but they took my horse and made him surrender. They have him pulling a wagon up in Kansas, I'll bet.
Fucking love that line.
And his manhood has been taken away from him.
Yeah.
Despite his age. And
Yeah.
so it's at this point where he's kind of getting himself back again.
Well, that's it. He's been showing certain skills. When we first met him, he said he'd forgotten all of his stuff, and now he's getting through. He's putting his ear to the ground. He can hear the horses. He can follow trails and things like that. And we see this when they get into the Comanche landscape with Ken Bears, and they come across Granny's wagon with her granddaughter, and it's been attacked by white men who are living in the Indian land, attacking wagons. And I'm not too sure if they made it look like it was the Indians doing it or not, but they would kill these people, take the supplies, and sell it to the Indians. Make money for themselves. And so that's how the Indians obviously got weapons and things like that. And obviously Josie sees it, and obviously, like, once again, doesn't want to get involved. But every time you see a woman about to get raped, it takes a flashback back to what happened to his wife, and he doesn't like that. And these men grab hold of Sondra Locke's character, and wow, they rip her clothes off. But the leader of the gang, I can't remember the actor's name, he was in Every Which Way But Loose, played the leader of the biker gang. He grabs his guys and he's just like, no. If you want to have it your way, there's a granny over there, but we're selling this woman for at least 10 to 15 horses. She's going to be cleaned up and she's going to be taken care of. And you're like, oh, fuck me, And we see the wagon trail start to go off, and then you start to watch Josie come up with his rifle, and he's looking to parlay. And I'm like, fuck you. No, he ain't. No, he ain't.
He's got the white flag in the barrel of his gun.
Yeah, I know. That would have been the first sure sign. But I love the way that Lone even says, like, this is where he spits.
Yes.
And like Lone knows what's going to happen next, and he spits, and then all of a sudden the gun comes down, blam, shoots that first guy. Josie pulls out both of his double pistols, shoots the guys on the horses, and wipes them all out.
Yeah. That's fantastic, because you're rooting for him too. And so he saves the two girls, and then they're back on the road again, and now he's got quite a big.
Yeah, he's got.
Like I said, there's a new family. And he turns and he's like, if it weren't for all of you lot, I'd be in Mexico by now. Yeah. And they make their way into another sort of abandoned town. It was a silver mining town.
Yeah, well, they're taking Granny's wagon to her son's ranch.
Yeah.
In this town, and she's been getting letters from her son saying that he's honest and he's this and he's that and everything's going to be right for them. But I think did he die at some point?
I'd imagine so. Yeah.
Because they get to the town. The town's partially been abandoned. The silver's run out. There's no big high rollers coming through. There's no liquor, and everybody knows this Granny's son But when we get to his ranch has been abandoned, and I don't remember anybody actually saying, you know, maybe they did, but I don't remember anybody actually saying, oh, well, he died and he left you this ranch.
Yeah, nobody knows.
But I love the way that Clint Eastwood kind of walks into that bar, and you know, he's like, whiskey, and they're all laughing like, ah, we don't have whiskey. Got any beer? No, we haven't got any beer. He just kind of walks out again, and then walks back in with those
With the crate of
supplies.
whiskey, yeah.
He goes, here you go, people, and so now everybody loves it.
Yeah. Small bit of trivia for you.
Yeah.
It's Matt Clark plays the bartender.
What was he from? I was bugging the fuck out of me.
Back to the Future Part 3.
He was the bartender in that. I knew it. I fucking
When
knew
Marty
it.
McFly says he's Clint Eastwood.
I'm looking at that bartender, and it's because he's so young. I'm like,
Yes, yeah.
who the fuck are you? And I kept looking through the cast, and I couldn't work out.
Visualize him, yeah.
Well, I couldn't work out what the fuck the bartender was called, so I couldn't find it. And weirdly enough, I kept skipping to Back to the Future. Like, you got to give it a couple of minutes, and the hangover thing will kick in. But I'm like, nah, that can't be him. That can't... yeah. Fucking knew it. They finally turn up at Granny's ranch, and Josey looks at the place, and he's like, you know what? This place is pretty good. You know, you can do some good work here. You know, you got 4 walls and a roof and some good land. But he doesn't want to stay. And
Well, he knows he can't, because he knows that this is now his family.
Yeah.
You know, reluctantly.
Yeah, yeah.
But he also knows that he needs to kind of protect them, because those that are pursuing him are going to come this way eventually.
Yep. And he's got bounty hunters after him.
But he also knows that Ten Bears, the Native American that's in charge around here, has also noticed his presence.
Yep.
And is probably going to attack them as well.
Fucking 10 bears.
And this cues my favourite scene in the entire film.
Yeah.
Where Josey rides out on his own to go and meet Ten Bears. And Ten Bears is played by a legendary actor, Will Sampson, who was phenomenal in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and just such a memorable character in Poltergeist 2.
Yeah, that's all I kept thinking. When he comes out of his TV and he sees Clint Eastwood come to him, all I kept thinking was, Eastwood, angry.
Yeah.
That horse, your horse is angry. But he's such an imposing figure.
It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so great. And it's my favourite scene because the two of them discuss their differences and their similarities.
Yeah.
And they're both like, men live with each other. Governments don't live with each other.
No.
And it's just like, I've come here to live with you or die with you.
Yeah.
And I was just like, the dialogue here is amazing.
Yeah, it was-
And the performances just capture it.
It was just so beautiful. The two of them sat opposite each other. You know, my words of life, these are my words of life. Well, what are your words of death? Sat here right in my pistol.
And you will die. I came here to die with you. I'll live with you. And your word of death? It's here in my pistols, there in your rifles. I'm here for either one.
I'm like, oh, damn!
Brilliant.
It's so good. So, you know, it's basically Josey's saying, like, I'll fight you to the death to protect my family. And I know you will do exactly the same thing. But you know, as you're looking at them, that if 10 Bears dies, the rest of the tribe is lost. Because you know 10 Bears is having trouble with the generals. You know, and you know, if Josey dies, his family will be safe, but they'll be really upset. And so when they slice their hands and they come to their agreement, immediately I was like, well, that's AIDS. But you've got a blood brother there. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that is the only sequence with 10 Bears in the film, but
Yeah.
it was great.
It was absolutely amazing.
So Josey goes back and, you know, lets everybody know the situation. But this is another great moment where he's just like, you know, the Confederates, the government are going to be coming for me. So if you're going to stay here and I'm going to stay here, this is how you defend the place.
Yeah.
And he starts saying, you, rifle here, window, you here.
Well, he points out that the house is being designed to be defendable.
Yeah.
The windows, they're not religious symbols. Those are so you got maneuverability on your rifles.
Yeah.
You know, the walls are really thick. The only thing we've got to worry about is them coming through the roof. That's our only blind spot.
Yeah.
But keep a hot poker on the fire so you can burn bloody bullet wounds. You know, keep every gun loaded. I loved the interaction between Lone and Granny. There are
Yes.
two fucking lines that I was in
Yeah.
stitches with. Is where she says, oh god, those goddamn Redskins, no offence, and Lone says, none taken. And then later on he goes, those goddamn palefaces, no offence, Granny's reloading, she's like, none taken. I'm like, yes!
Great.
You know, we're sure gonna show them Redskins something tomorrow. No offense meant.
None taken. Yeah, we really gonna show these pale faces something. No offense.
None taken.
But Fletcher has garnered information from a bounty hunter who turned up in the town just before Josey met Ten Bears. His partner had been killed by Josey. Another incredible sequence. The bounty hunter walks into the bar, says to him, "You're Josey Wales," and he's like, "Yeah, I am." And what he says, "You're a bounty hunter," and the bounty hunter says, "Well, I got to make a living." And Josey goes, "Not much living in dying." And you're like, he will fucking kill you. And so the bounty hunter leaves because Josey says, "Look, you can leave." And then the bounty hunter comes walking back in again, and he says, "I had to come back in." And Josey goes, "I know." And you're like, "Oh fuck!" And then he blasts it, and obviously Josey is faster and kills the bounty hunter. But his bounty hunter partner has taken the information to Fletcher and Tyrrell about where Josey is. So they come to the town, and Josey has just got with Laura Lee, played by Sondra Locke, and you kind of wanted them to get together, but then you kind of didn't want them to get together. Well, personally, I didn't, because I was still thinking he was rooting for his family. I wanted him to have a new family, but I liked the way he kept her at arm's length until he saw her in that white dress, and she was absolutely gorgeous in that.
Yeah.
And they do sleep together, and he has his memories, and he gets all of his stuff together, jumps on his horse, and as he's leaving, he sees Lone, and Lone has a bit of a word with him. And Lone understands that Josey has to leave, and so before Josey finishes his sentence, Lone's already gone. Because in a respectful way of, look, this was never forever, so off you go. But then Josey rides up, and Tyrrell's sat outside the cottage and screams his name, and they have this standoff, and you get all the huge posse ride up, and I love it when you see horses all in one line.
I think it's 11 men on horseback all lined up. Yeah,
moving together, and you're like, once again, how the fuck is Josey going to get out of this? And it's when Tyrrell says, "You're alone, Josey," and then you hear Lone say, "No, he's not," and all of a sudden 4 rifles just appear from the windows.
Yeah.
And I questioned throughout the movie how Josey was able to fire so much. I mean, I don't understand 6-shooters or the different pistols from the Western era. I know they all had different bullets and sizes and capacity and blah blah blah. But I got through the film and I thought, oh, it's one of those where we don't see him reload. He just keeps firing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the end that I realised he had 4 guns on him.
Yes, yeah.
So I was like, well, that's at least fucking 24 fucking rounds before he even has to reload.
Absolutely, yeah.
Depending on the size capacity.
I mean, it's a great shootout, this sequence, where they're all trying to break into the house, and some of them do come in through the roof.
Yeah.
They all get shot down.
Yeah.
Now, I counted 11 coming across the river.
Yeah.
And I counted more than 20 taking shots and dying. And I was like, well, maybe some of them are getting back up after being shot down. I was like,
I was surprised because you see 3 of them like up on a hillside, and Granny fires and kills one. And I'm like, when you see the hillside from like the outside shot of the house, it's fucking miles away. There's no way she could have made that shot.
So there's a bit of continuity there, but yeah.
But it's a great final shootout. It's getting
really
to the end, and Tyrrell, he's been injured and he's made a run for it, and Josey has gone straight after him, and you're behind him the whole way. You're like, Tyrrell, you're fucking going down here. And he gets to the town and he gets hold of Tyrrell, and he just stands there walking towards him, just dry shooting.
Yeah.
And you're like, does he think there's a bullet in there? Is he trying to intimidate him? And that's, like I said, that's when I saw he had 4 guns, because he fired the first 2, and then he pulled out the other 2 and he fired them. And then just as he gets up close, Tyrrell pulls out his cavalry sword. Josey grabs it by the handle and then slowly forces it into his gut. And I'm like, oh, slow and painful.
Yeah.
Just how I like it.
Yeah, it's so deserved, because you're kind of rooting for it at the same time. You're like, this guy had to die.
Yeah,
at the end of this.
Yeah.
I would have been upset with a bad ending. If the outlaw Josey Wales was gunned down.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
But it works.
But Josey heads back to town, and as he walks back into the bar, he hears the local patrons talking about Josey Wales, and you're like, shit, have they dobbed them in? Because there's 2 Texas Rangers there. And the bartender explains it to him, but calls him Mr. Wilson.
And explains that Josey Wales was shot and killed.
Yeah, so you realise that Josey has garnered enough respect and love and honoured by everybody that they are willing to put their own lives on the line to protect him. And you realise that Fletcher is there, and you're like, uh-oh. And yet Fletcher plays it so cool as well.
Yeah.
You know, that the 2 of them, anything could just set it off, but the Texas Rangers leave, and Fletcher just has this nice little last word with Mr. Wilson and explains that I'm heading to Mexico. I'm going to see if I can maybe find Josey down there, and when I meet him, you know, I'll give him the first move because that's as much as I deserve to give him. And Josey says, well, yeah, fine. And Mr. Fletcher says, I'd like to tell him that the war's over. And Josey says, I think we all lost a little something in that war.
Yeah. Ugh.
And he just gets on his horse. And you don't, I left it a bit ambiguous. I mean, I kind of hoped that he'd ridden back to Granny's.
Well, in the book, he does settle down.
Yeah, that's what I would hope.
But Clint Eastwood was just like, "Now my characters don't get."
No,
it doesn't happen.
The man with no name barely. He just rides off into the sunset, and
yeah,
that's what we get. We get the iconic ride off into the sunset.
Now there is a 1980 sequel.
Oh right,
to this, The Return of Josey Wales.
Okay.
Different cast entirely.
Oh, okay, no.
And it is set in Mexico, where he's gone there to go and rescue a friend from a jailhouse.
Oh.
It's poor. No budget, no actors, no good sets. Avoided at all costs. It's just one of those, really? There was a sequel?
Yeah,
in name only, you know.
There usually is.
So Iain, favourite scenes?
I had quite a few. I love the interaction with everybody who came with Josey Wales. I mean, I loved the granny meeting him and telling him to come back through, because I don't know who that actress was, but she held the screen. You know, she was old, kind of frail looking. I don't think she had any teeth, but the way she's talking down to Clint Eastwood, to Josey Wales, and saying, "No, this is what you're going to do." I'm like, "Gosh, that's a scary ass woman there."
Just going off on the back of that, that's one of my favourite sequences as well, where he's in her house and he goes to spit.
Oh no! That's one of my other favourite scenes.
She looks at him and he just swallows it for the only time in the film.
I meant the granny at the marketplace by the ferry. I like that one, but you just stole that one. That's one of my other favourite sequences where she goes and just looks at him and he's like, "Oh, God."
Yeah, it's great.
It's fucking great.
Didn't figure you for a loafer.
I love the interaction with the kid, especially when the kid's talking about his dad, and it really sounded like he had love for his dad, because his dad was stitching, doing the thing that a lot of people would have shunned at that time. He saves Josey Wales' life as well, and in a weird way, Josey kind of respects him by allowing him to be buried. When he goes through the Union camp, It was absolutely brilliant.
Never turn his back on his folks or his kind. I rode with him. I got no complaints. Bluebellies will give you a better burial than I can, boy.
I love him when he kills the horse traders. That flicking of the pistols when he's got them held one way and then pow! Fucking awesome. And Lone Watty when he sneaks up on Josey after, and he's like, "I must be getting better. I managed to sneak up on you." And Josey goes, "Well, only an Indian could do that." And the girl appears behind Lone. And it's like kind of replicated later on when Lone leaps on her when they're following her.
Yeah.
And she overpowers him with the knife, and Josey pulls her off. And Lone goes, "Good thing you stopped me. I was going to kill her." And Josey's like, "Yeah, looks like it."
Yeah.
The sex sequence as well with Lone getting some. I mean, I just think it's the way they're like, "Howdy." Goes back to their first initial interaction. I mean, I love the shootout with the Comanche traders. It was such a good little shootout, especially when Josey's chasing after that last guy and Moonlight kind of pops up and blam, shoots that last guy. It's like, she's not taking any shit. Like I said, the spit on the floor in Granny's house, that was absolutely brilliant. And then there was a shot during the final shootout that I absolutely loved, where it was a close-up of Josey's hands, and the two guns came on screen just to
Yeah.
the side of his side, and they fire and they kill two horsemen as they fall.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was so brilliantly placed, right in the middle of the gunfight. You're wanting them to kill everybody. Yeah, okay, these guys are probably innocent and just doing their job, but you came to the wrong fucking house.
Yeah, there's so many memorable moments in the film. I love the Missouri boat ride. Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
The dying ain't much of a living boy to the bounty hunter. Great snappy dialogue.
Yeah.
But meeting Ten Bears before the house defense was just great. You know, Will Sampson and Clint Eastwood, just fantastic. It's the most riveting scene in the whole film, and it's just two men on horseback talking to each other.
Yeah.
But the tension of, you know, the hostilities between the Native Americans and the invading American white man, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, it was just great. And, you know, the uneasy alliance to the becoming blood brothers,
Yeah.
essentially, against the government oppressors. You know, it's just like, it's great.
He said, you know, this will be our symbol.
Yeah.
You know, and if you ever want to come past here, you can slaughter some of our cattle and we will work with you. And I was just
Yeah.
like, why couldn't the American government have done that?
Yeah, so many whys.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend The Outlaw Josey Wales. It is written really sensitively, and it feels like reality, almost history. You know, and as a fan of the Western genre, I have to recommend this film. It's a gun-blazing, emotional story of revenge and redemption. Clint Eastwood is phenomenal on screen, and his personality holds, and it captivates throughout the whole film with his excellent directional work. The supporting cast are also perfect, you know, and they
Yep.
create great on-screen chemistry between the characters. I personally highly rate this amongst some of the best westerns I've ever seen. It is truly amazing with many memorable moments. This is a must-watch film. It's excellent.
I definitely recommend this. And it just opened me up to actually just get more. I mean, as soon as I finished this, I took Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight out of my DVD collection and stuck them next to my TV. Like, they're next. You know, I went on Amazon and I'm like, how much is High Plains Drifter? How much is Pale Rider? How much is Unforgiven? How much is Quick and the Dead? I wanted more westerns, you know, with or without Clint Eastwood. He is amazing, and I mean, I know that there might be some people out there like, oh, you don't know the history and this is all that stuff and he's not as good as he is. Well, that's true, we don't. All we can really go from is what we see on screen, and it works. It really does. Like Gary says, all of the supporting cast elevated Clint Eastwood's character up, but I can only see that as Clint Eastwood off screen working with them.
Yeah.
You know, and saying, look, this is what we want to do, so let's work together to make this work. I love the background, you know, this when you could see the whole blue skies, when you could see the mountains and the forests, and it kind of upsets me because it was like there was that shot where he's riding to the trading post and you got that trading post in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, you know, it's not there anymore. That's probably a town, a city filled with thousands of people, and you know, and it's just all gone now. But this was a time where you just had this natural beauty just there. And then the invading white man came in and fucked it all up. But I'm not going to go into that. What I'm going to say is if you don't like westerns, then don't watch this because you ain't going to get anything from it.
I would say watch this and give the genre another chance.
Yeah, do that. There are some Hollywood-based ones where the hero always wins. Then you got your others. And those ones are really good.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Didn't figure you for a loafer.